It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Well, hello there. Howdy-ho there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Very excited to have Jennifer Zeng on the show today. Jennifer is a human rights activist born in the People's Republic of China. She's an author. She also has a YouTube channel called Inconvenient Truths. She's probably best known for her practice of Falun Gong, which is a religion based on Buddhism and Taoism, and call it a New Age version of those religions. You can look it up. I'm not going to go into what that's all about. When she was in China, the government of the People's Republic of China, the CCP, began to arrest people who were involved with the group, and she was among them. She was in fact arrested 4 times, sent to a labor camp called the Beijing Municipal Women's Re-Education Through Labor Camp for rehabilitation. In 2001, she fled to Australia, and now she lives in the United States, continuing her work with human rights activism. She has a series on the COVID-19, specifically relating to the CCP's cover-up, its treatment of people who were deemed to be spreading rumor, when in fact they were spreading facts, several people who disappeared and whose whereabouts is unknown to this day. There's a lot of very heartbreaking information and very disturbing information in this interview, but I feel it needs to be shared, and I'm very glad that she agreed to come on the show and tell us about it. So stick around. We will be right back with Jennifer Zeng.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records. And it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T, Epps, E-P-P-S, at talk, T-A-L-K, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Love coffee, huh? But wait a minute. It seems like every time you finish a cup of coffee, you get all of these side effects along with it. Heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, acid reflux. As the world's first and only organic acid-free coffee, Tyler's Coffee is able to provide a healthier option in the solution for more than 100 million individuals who have sensitive stomachs or suffer from acid-related modalities. This is Tyler's acid-free coffee. Coffee without the consequences.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hi, this is John Morgan, Production Supervisor for DJC Productions, and you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Jennifer Zeng. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I saw your YouTube channel, the Inconvenient Truth, and I watched the COVID series that you did. Lot of information in there, and very, very interesting. A lot of it, I don't want to say surprising, because I'm not a big fan of the CCP. I don't trust them. I think most of the world should know better than to trust what they say. But there was some very unfortunate things in there. And I know we don't have time to cover every episode and like the whole thing. So I just want to cover like a couple of sort of basic points of COVID and get your opinions on. The first thing is, I think most people have dismissed this notion that it came from people eating bat soup. That was the original story that we got. It's pretty much been established that it came from the virology lab in Wuhan. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. I think there is a lot of evidence that that should be either accidentally released from that lab, or you can say otherwise. But it definitely came from that lab. There is a lot of evidence. If you watch my show and I have a special program analyze all the process, I think that is very much established.
Okay. That was my next question, was that there have been speculations. And in fact, there was one doctor, a Chinese doctor, a woman, and I cannot remember her name, but she was on Tucker Carlson's show a couple of weeks ago, maybe. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes. I know Yan Li Meng.
Okay. And
I think she came from Hong Kong, right?
Yes, I believe she came from Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yes.
And she was saying that she believed that this was deliberately perpetrated on the world.
Yes, I saw some of her interviews, and I also actually personally asked a virologist I trusted to, I think, give an opinion of her first paper. I think she pretty much established many, I think, very solid analysis based on her knowledge of all the, the gene sequences that we ordinary folks don't quite understand. And she came to her conclusion that such a perfect virus could only be man-made. That's her, I think, analysis or her conclusion based on her knowledge, because I'm not an expert on that specific, I think you can say, field because it's a very specific field of study. Only people who qualified to all those or who has all those knowledge can say yes or no. But because I'm pretty much, I think, more of a reporter, or you can say a commentator. Based on the facts I know, I think there is enough evidence to, like we said, to draw the conclusion that the virus, whether it's man-made or naturally made, it came from that lamp. And I think the CCP does have, you can say, the motivation to create such a virus, because they were talking about bio war all these years, and they did do some, there's a technical term called gain of function kind of researches. In all these years, it was published in scientific research magazines, and there were scientific research, and I also translated a few of short videos promoting their lab or boasting about their scientific research result in this area. I say, so we maybe right now we don't have direct evidence that they purposely release it from the lab, but what I can say is the virus was came from that lab, and the CCP has the ability and the motivation to do such research. That's what I can say comfortably.
Well, what always was suspect to me was the timing of this particular virus. Because if you look at what was happening just a month or so ago before the virus hit, China and President Trump were embroiled in a huge trade war. He had really turned the pressure up on China to play fair with intellectual property, and he was putting tariffs on everything coming in from China. No president had really ever called out China for their unfair trade practices prior to President Trump. At the same time, Hong Kong was seeing massive political demonstrations in the streets against the CCP. And all of that was going on at the same time. All of a sudden, this virus comes along and everything stops dead in its tracks. The Hong Kong protests stop immediately. The trade war goes on hold. And the economies of the world suffer greatly because of this virus. It just seemed a little too convenient for China and for the CCP to have that virus come out right at that particular moment.
Yes, I understand that there were people talking about this virus was developed to target Hong Kong protesters because the CCP did really badly want to crack down on the protesters, and that's their maybe only means, because they tried everything they could, but the youngsters of Hong Kong were very brave. They went to the street, 2 million of them on one, I think, particular day. Yes, like you said, the trade all stopped, and then suddenly I think people's attention were all on this virus, and especially I think when the world was struck very hard, people were so busy, fighting with the virus. Nobody talking about Hong Kong anymore, and nobody had the energy to worry about the trade war anymore. And I think they also benefit from the virus somehow. They buy, selling their masks. They've brought over all the masks before the pandemic hit other countries. So they benefited from it. So in this sense, and they are now boasting that they've controlled their pandemic, and they are experience a GDP growth again when the world is suffering. And now I think politically, I think especially inside China, they are talking to their own people now. We are the only country, or we are the only party that is capable of control this virus. So you'd better, follow me and listen and respect our and sing praises of our party still. So they did, I think, benefit a lot from this virus. So that's definitely is the case. But I can say very, with a lot of confidence is that they did try very hard to cover up this virus or this pandemic when it first broke out. And it's definitely the CCP's responsibility that this virus has gone out of control and affected the whole world. And they definitely should be held accountable for this.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. You brought up in China. I wanted to bring that up as well, because at some point, China stopped reporting the number of deaths, the number of infections. It just stopped dead, as if nobody was dying after this one particular day. and of course, nobody believes it. Nobody believes that at all. Do you have any idea what the real death toll is in China? Because according to this report that's out worldwide, they're saying about 4,000 people, which I can't believe that at all.
Nobody can believe that. If you compare the death rate and the infection rate, of many other countries, and China is the place where this virus first started. How could they have much or hundreds of I think hundreds of times lower death toll and infection rate? So that's just a joke. And actually, only 1 week into this thing, after they started announcing their cases and numbers back in December, only 1 week afterwards, I stopped watching their numbers or share or take up about or quote their numbers anymore, because I knew at that stage it was all fake. Because I experienced SARS outbreak, 17 years ago. From that experience, I knew the CCP covered it up. Many more people died. So it's so hard to get all the numbers out of China. But I think in September, maybe I was the first to break out the news of the decrease of their mobile phone users. So there are altogether 3 major phone carriers in China. So each month they report how many users they have, and independently every company release their own numbers. So if you put all the numbers of the 3 companies together, there were more than 23 million less users in, I think, February than the last month.
23 million?
I know this is a very, very shocking number. And if we assume, of course, there were people saying, some people, maybe they own more than one number or they have more than one SIM card. Even if half of those people, the loss of the mobile phone users came from, multiple SIM card, the number still so too huge. So if we don't have any other more reliable number, I think that number could give us some rough idea of how many people really died in this pandemic. And I challenged everybody. I challenged the Chinese government or the CCP to give us, if you really give me a reasonable explanation of the huge decrease of the mobile phone users, we accept it. But so far, nobody ever came out to explain to us why there was such a huge drop in the mobile phone loss. You can't explain it in any other way.
That is an absolute staggering figure. You said 23 million less users?
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's their own official number, because the 3 companies, they didn't release the number at the same time, but maybe within several days each released. So I added all those numbers up. When the first company released number, that was 8 million less users. So I figure maybe many of the users, they switch companies, they switch to other tool carriers. So I waited till other tool carriers also release their number, and then I add up all the number together, and then it's still 23 million less.
Amazing. So it would be very difficult to explain why 23 million people suddenly stopped using their phone. Yeah.
Yes, you can. I think part of it could come from because some people maybe have multiple SIM cards, and one for personal use, one for business, and now because the pandemic, they don't have that much business to do, so they maybe cancel one of those cards. But in such a difficult time, people, I think a cell phone is the last thing people will stop using, even if they can go for maybe skip one meal in a day if they don't have enough money. They can't afford to not to have a phone, because in China, almost all of China once was locked down. Everybody was locked in your home, so your cell phone is the only thing you can stay connected with your family, with your outside world, shopping, and to do payment. So I think that is the last thing you will let go in that kind of period, difficult time. So you can't give out a very reasonable explanation why. So that's maybe the closest number. I think that sounds crazy, but I challenge anyone to give a better explanation of the drop of the numbers.
I wanted to ask you also about, because China, the CCP heavily censors news and things that are going on, obviously. In China, is there an active resistance or a protest or a movement or anything to get rid of the CCP, to make China a democracy, to make China a free country? Is there a strong movement for that, or is it pretty much kept suppressed because the government would take harsh action against people like that, like Tiananmen Square, for example?
Yeah, I think really it is really very, very hard for people to organize themselves to do something together in China because of this, like you said, this heavy surveillance of everything. So you can't change information freely, and you can't really trust each other. So they use a term that everybody in the society is like a single particle, and you cannot connect with each other. So I think right now, as far as I can see, people are very much isolated, and it's very hard to organize themselves into to do something that can be called a movement. But things are also changing, and I think with more and more people have the ability to jump over the firewall, and there are maybe not many, but some still in overseas countries trying to organize things maybe from overseas countries where at least they themselves are safe. I think there are a lot of people thinking about it, maybe have already done something or are doing something. But on the surface, I think right now what we can say, we do have many mass protests or uprising of this sort, of that sort, but those are mainly the so-called rights defense movement. They organize like once a financial company goes bankrupt and they lost their investment, they lost their money, maybe hundreds or thousands of them gather together at that institute and try to get the money back. So right now, I think the so-called, they can't be called a resistant movement, but more, I think, of rights defense movement or activities or events. But there are more and more of this kind of thing happening, and I think we shouldn't be surprised if one day or very soon in the near future people start to, you can say, upgrade their movement from mere rights defending to more political pursuit like democracy, freedom. Because people know that freedom and democracy exist in other countries, and they know China or Chinese people also have the right to seek for it, or to ask for it, or try to fight for it. So that's, I think, my basic analysis of this situation.
Do the people in China have the right to vote?
No.
No.
We never say a vote at all. There's no election in China. Or in theory, they call it an election, but everything is decided. Like you have only one maybe candidate, or only two, but you need to vote for them all. Or you see people vote, but that's not a real vote. Everything is already decided. You are just required to be there to raise your hand like you are voting, but it's not voting at all.
So ostensibly Xi Jinping will be president for life.
Yes, I think the CCP just had its 5th plenary session of the 19th, CCP Congress. It's a little bit like our government here. Every 4 years we elect a new government. So for the CCP, every 5 years, it's a national Congress or of the party. So it is supposed every 5 years you need to elect within the party a new leader or leadership. But in Xi Jinping's case, I think 5 years ago have already changed the rule so that he can stay in power for life. And in this 5th plenary session in the previous because the 5th plenary session was already the last one for this batch or the 19th CCP Congress. So usually you should decide your successor or the next leader of the party, or even if they don't formally announce who is the successor, but you can see it from their report and the way they talk about certain people and the arrangement. But definitely from this time, there is no successor for the Xi Jinping, and it seems he will be stay in power for life, and no one, at least at the moment, is challenging him or have the ability to challenge him.
One of the other questions I wanted to ask you was something that came up in your video series that I found rather disturbing, and I'm sure anybody listening will find disturbing. There were several very prominent people that were featured in that series who, as you said, disappeared, whereabouts unknown to this day. There was a lawyer, there was a film star or something. There were a couple of people, a doctor or two. Have any of those people been found to this day?
You mean in my videos, they disappeared?
Right. There was like 4 people or so that you said, this person disappeared and their whereabouts is unknown to this day. Have any of them ever been found?
Yes and no. That doctor, we heard she was... but we will never know whether that's true or not. Someday maybe she suddenly appear and maybe post a picture on her social media account, but that's all. So just to show people that she's still alive, But we don't know, we didn't hear her talking about the pandemic anymore. But once she said, if I knew this virus would be so serious, I would have talking about it all day long, even if they didn't allow me. Once she said that, but after she disappeared and reappeared, she no longer said anything. So that's the situation of the doctor. For that lawyer, we had no news of him at all. Somebody say, oh, he is under house arrest, or he's okay, he's still alive, but it's all just rumors. We don't have, real information. And for the guy whose name is Fang Bin, he was, I think, the bravest who shoot the video of, 8 bodies in 5 minutes of the number 5 Wuhan hospital, and that video went viral in February. His whereabouts is still unknown. So, there is a TV reporter, a former TV reporter from the CCTV. The young guy.
The young man.
What's his name?
Yeah.
He was released after maybe 40 days or something, and he did a video talking about the process of him being, how he disappeared, how he spent his maybe last 40 days. But people can see from that video he was still under surveillance because the CCP knew he was maybe people are paying attention to his situation. So he was forced to say, oh, I'm okay now, and they treat me very well. After I was taken away, I was just under quarantine. I'm okay. But and he did mention in that video, they took away all my mobile phone and my laptop, etc. When I was in quarantine. So nobody would believe that. If you are really in quarantine, they don't have to take away all his mobile phones and laptops. So maybe he said those under the CCP's pressure. So just to show he's still alive. So don't talk about me anymore, and I think he's, because all his family is still in CCP's hands, so he didn't want to create more trouble for the CCP. I know for his family, I know things could be very, very hard because the CCP controls everything in China. If you say, I don't care about my safety or my life, I would like to sacrifice my life to spread out the words or the truth. But when all your family members' life or safety or jobs are at stake, you may change your mind. You may think you have to, do whatever the CCP tell you to do in order to ensure the safety of your family. So for that young guy, after people watch his video, we all believed he is still under surveillance, and he was forced to say those things, that he was treated nicely and he wasn't arrested, he was just under quarantine. It's just lies made, forced by the CCP to make, just to give people some idea. So it's very, very terrifying. Not like Fang Bin was arrested for now how many months? 89 months, but we still had not one word about his situation or whether he is still alive.
Well, watching that video, it really reminded me of when they send videos of American hostages in the Middle East someplace, and they're forced to say, oh, things are very good here, they feed us well. And you just look at their face and you know that it's just not true, that they're lying, and they're forced to say that. And that's what he looked like in that video. Looked exactly like he was being held hostage by somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very true.
Yes, everybody could make that decision very easily.
Yeah.
Because he live broadcast the process of the police breaking into his hotel room and took him away. So when he came out again, he talked totally like another person. So nobody would believe that, because previously he did all this broadcasting and live videos on his own accord. He went there because of his own decision. He's a reporter. He wanted to find out the truth. But after he was taken away and disappeared for 40 days, when he came out, he became another person. So nobody would believe he wasn't tortured, he wasn't coerced into doing what he was doing.
No. Jennifer, we do have to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on this show. This is really fascinating and very, very interesting, and I hope that people really heed the warnings about the CCP and about the way that human rights are violated in China. It is just disgraceful. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, my personal website is jenniferzengblog.com. jenniferzengblog.com, and my YouTube channel is Inconvenient Truths by Jennifer Zeng. So if you search for me, you can find my channel.
Okay, and I urge everybody to watch Jennifer's videos. They're very informative, very good, and I think we need more of those. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.